For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sane Dhlamini. Political analyst Dr. Ralph Mathekga joins me to discuss the recent political developments and the State of the Nation address. Welcome, Ralph. Thank you for your time. Tell us, Ralph, Parliament has a task at hand to start the inquiry into Public Protector to remove her, as we've heard last year that the DA said she's unfit to hold office. Why do you say in your recent columns that this might embarrass the ruling party?
I mean, the issue where it is now, I looked at the report, the recent report is that actually Parliament was accepting the names of people who need to be part of that independent inquiry. I think there will be an element of outside people. And quite interestingly about this, I think that the removal or maybe the inquiry into the fitness to hold office of the Public Protector, it is going to be the biggest test of the ANC caucus in Parliament. I mean, I say this because if you look at the composition of the current caucus in Parliament, it is a reflection of where the party is in terms of the views, the world views, and the position that is taken by various members of caucus. You have within the caucus people that you can say that these ones are in line with President Ramaphosa's agenda, faction, whatever it is. And this other one are with the different faction. We often refer to people as the Zuma faction. I just think people are just a faction of their own. They're evolving away from President Jacob Zuma's politics, if you ask me. So if you look at that caucus, it is the caucus that one cannot really predict where would it go. There are people within that caucus who have made it very clear that they don't have a problem with the work of the Public Protector, and there are some people actually who will stand to gain from Mkhwebane's work, particularly in its reflection of President Cyril Ramaphosa, the funding, the 500,000 rents funding from Bosasa and so forth. So it is a very factionalized caucus, and again, Supra Mahoma Pelu has actually put it very clear that he personally will find it very difficult to vote on the DA motion. Remember, this is the DA motion, and we don't have a history of the ANC caucus voting with an opposition. I've not seen that. Even during that time on the motion of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma, even if there were people who defied the ANC caucus, but the ANC caucus have never overwhelmingly voted with the opposition. So it's time to be seen what kind of a caucus do we really have here.
And what do you think of the recent birthday party celebrations for our Public Protector? I mean, we saw names like Mosebenzi Zwane and Nomgcobo Chiba being invited in that party.
I mean, I saw the news about that party, social media views about that party earlier in the day when the news came out. I think it's yesterday. We started seeing that news yesterday. And what I thought was interesting is that my first impression when I firstly saw the picture and I looked at the guest list, I said, my goodness, these are what people will say are the usual suspects. And when I say the usual suspect, ironically, I don't mean people who have got criminal, I would say, liability or who need to answer to criminal. It might be the case that some who were invited there, I mean, there were suspect there. One of the people who was there actually, it's facing charges in relation to corruption, bribery, and so forth. Bongani Bongo, supported to have been there. Mosebenzi Zwane, as you mentioned. These are the usual suspect in the sense of the people you can actually associate with the corner of Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, and they are understood as people who are within a different faction against President Ramaphosa's faction. But I thought it was also an interesting mix with the EFF, Dalimpofu, the Advocate Dalimpofu. Advocate Mpofu never shies away from controversy. He's a man who expresses himself, no doubt about that. And again, it is just very interesting that he's there. The question is he going to represent Mkhwebane? Remember, now he's no longer taking, he's no longer up there the leadership of the EFF. He even said it himself that he's got more leverage to take up on other cases. Could we be seeing someone there who's going to be part of the legal team to fight against this removal? Remember, this removal is just the beginning. The attempt to assess Mkhwebani's fitness to hold office is just the beginning. There is a possibility that this thing can go to court and drag longer. She has made it clear she's going to go to court.
Now, we've seen in KZN an interesting move from the former DA youth leader, Ntuli, that she's standing. She's putting her name in that hat to stand for DA leadership. Do you see her saving the DA?
I thought it was courageous of her to raise her hand in that manner. And when I say courageous, it's in politics, when they say your decision is courageous, it means it's extremely risky. It could bring about the end of her political life. I mean, the letter she wrote when she announced her candidature to lead the DA was quite scathing. Those are the views that I thought we have seen the last of them with Mr. Herman Mashaba leaving the party with that speech, Mr. Musi Maimane also leaving the party. I thought that's over. Helen Zille is back. She's stabilizing the party, and Johnny Steenhuisen is in charge. And I thought that the contest that will be coming forward for the permanent leader of that party will not bring those issues of race that the DA struggled to deal with and its position in relation to the broader progressive agenda in South Africa. And I think that is what Mbali is raising there. But for her to win this battle, it will mean that she will have garnered sufficient anti-establishment votes within the DA. She's invoking anti-establishment votes. The establishment within the DA do not like to see what is in that letter. That is the establishment. And she wants to bring that vote. It is a very risky maneuver. This is where you lose, you get out sometimes. But I don't see her surviving here. I don't see her gaining sufficient anti-establishment vote, not where the DA currently is. However, I have to say, very courageous of her. She has shown, I think, willingness to deeply reflect about this party.
And now we're seeing Musi Maimane working on his new movement that will be launched in April. And he says it's going to be like the UDF in the 80s. Is this what we need?
I read the history. The nostalgia of the UDF just refuses to die. People need to understand that when the UDF was in place, South Africa was a different country altogether. There were no formal institutions of participation for majority of black people by then. No doubt about it. Parliament did not include black people. The moment allowed for an organic activism in the form of the UDF. I often hear South Africans saying, we want to bring that UDF. We are a different society now. In principle, currently, you don't necessarily have to march on the street to be heard. You can actually go to court and win a political victory or whatever you are standing for without necessarily disrupting the system if you really choose that option. So it is very difficult for someone to reignite the spirit of the UDF. It's in a democratic dispensation, you need to understand people are no longer fascinated with those things. And even if our current political system, one might criticize it as being stagnant, I really think one cannot totally say it's totally unresponsive. I mean, there's still an option for people. Why can't Mr. Maimane just form a political party and that's it, like anybody else, and get funding for that party and maybe try it out as a party? A movement in a democratic society which is not a political party, I think we need more definition as to what exactly that entails.
And now Herman Mashaba is going to form a political party. But chances of his party making it are slim. What is your view?
Mr. Mashaba is clear. It was always clear that it was going to get to that point. And when you form a political party, it means that you are now contesting for power. So it's very clear he wants to contest for power at whatever level. And, the question indeed is, do we still need any new political party? To be honest with you, I think you can have 5 more political parties in South Africa, as long as they identify issues that they will anchor themselves upon. They will be creative in their offering. I mean, if you listen to most of the political parties, the big 3, EFF, the DA, the NC, it feels like they are locked in the old discourse. They are part of the same discourse. It's just that they stand on the opposing side of each other. But if you come up with a political party, maybe with a different line of messaging, I'm not saying that it has to talk above the issues on the ground, but come up with a different line of messaging, maybe have a different target of constituencies. I think there is still a room for creativity when it comes to how parties can be formulated and so forth. And again, a lot of parties that get formed in South Africa, they do relatively well, 2-3%. It's just that they decimate themselves, your cope and so forth. And I think where we are, looking at what is being offered in our political spectrum, bring more. And let there be a market out there for political ideas, and maybe with better, meaningful competition, even in terms of ideas, South Africa will get closer to its solutions.
Now, looking at the Federation, Cosatu, their suggestion has gained momentum. They say that government must use employee pension funds to save Eskom. What is your view on this?
You know, I would say that people need to be very careful about this. I mean, Cosatu is putting a very serious condition to this. They are saying that government must use those pensions to save Eskom, and those pensions are held through Public Investment Corporation. They are invested in various portfolios. The reality is that if you are an individual whose pension is affected, the performance of your pension will depend on the portfolio that it is being put in, and Eskom will be an investment in this case. And we should also confront the reality that if the pension scheme fails, it comes down to me and you as the taxpayer. It actually, at the end of the day, it is the taxpayer that is guaranteeing these investments. You ask yourself, is Cosatu being a perfect middleman here, where they are saying that, look, this is the money that belongs to our people. We think we have a say that you must invest it, but we don't want you to restructure Eskom to this extent because we want you to protect our people. But at the end of the day, if the whole thing collapses, if Eskom does not change its ways, chances are that it is the taxpayer, ordinary people who are non-Cosatu affiliate, who are going to have to foot the bill because the pension money, it's effectively guaranteed by the state. I mean, the taxpayer in South Africa has got an obligation not to allow the pension to fail. So should this be left only to Cosatu? It is a good thing they are saying that, but I think the condition they are placing need to be negotiated upon. The idea that they want to save jobs, that there should be no restructuring, that is what they might need to be negotiated upon. But I think they are coming in good spirit. It should be welcome. We should also notice as well that it might get the taxpayer having to pick the bill at a later stage if the pension scheme is under pressure.
But now we saw Fedusa singing a different tune. They are saying that Eskom should be placed under business rescue, as we've seen with SAA, because this thing of funding from time and again is not working out.
You know, I've been battling with the whole idea of business rescue. The question is, can you really put the government department in a business rescue? Maybe one need to attend to this specifically, because we use the term business rescue. When you place an entity under business rescue, in some, it's almost like a protection from bankruptcy. It's no longer a going concern. It can no longer sustain its finances and so forth. In some jurisdictions, they call it a bankruptcy protection. But what I'm looking at here is that if a business is put under business rescue and the shareholder keeps on interfering and telling you what you cannot do, then we need to look at the business element of it, because are we trying to bring the two worlds together? The policymakers feel they have a say, they should have a say in relation to what you do at Eskom, even when it's under business rescue. The same thing is happening in South African Airways, where we are seeing interference, where they are saying, no, the business rescue practitioner, you cannot tell us to do this and that. But if it was a private business, I ask myself, and you want that service, would you have the same attitude as government? And that is why it gets me to say, maybe we are trying to bring the world of business into the government department. These are two asymmetrical worlds that don't add up. Maybe you can never rescue a government department by the logic of business rescue. That is why we are going to have this conflict. And the same thing, I think, might be waiting for Eskom, because this business rescue thing seems to be hitting a wall with South African Airways. So I'm quite concerned about what do we mean by business rescue. Now I think I need to go back to those basics. What exactly do we mean? Do we mean we need outside people who are business practitioners to come in and administer the bailout / cost here and there, but not restructure the entity? I'm not clear what we mean given this recent confusion from government ministers.
And how would you describe the different messages that we've seen from leaders when it comes to SAA? Like we've seen Gwede Mantashe was in trouble when he said SAA should be sold because they are not making money.
When you look at the current state of the ANC, on Monday you hear one version of the ANC speaking, Tuesday is another version, Wednesday is another version, Thursday you are confused, you don't know who's speaking anymore. Yeah. And I always compare it to the biblical Tower of Babel, where people are just speaking from different corners, they don't understand each other. Mr. Mantashe is a serious minister in minerals and energy. His views on South African Airways count a lot. He's one of the top 6 members of the ANC, the National Office Bearer. So when he speaks, I wouldn't take it lightly. But again, when I hear him speaking something that other members of the party are disagreeing with, it only reveals incoherences within this party that members of ANC, senior members are speaking past each other. There is no consensus on bigger decisions that need to be taken. And the sad part is that they can't even manage their differences. Any platform that comes to them, they express the differences.
And now we've heard how the state has been looted at the Zondo Commission. Do you think that the commission is serving a useful purpose? Are we likely to see anything coming out of it?
Well, my understanding of the role of the commission is rather maybe different from how other people have seen it, or most people have heard. A lot of people want the commission to bring about much more direct consequences where people get arrested and so forth. That still depends on law enforcement and crime prevention. The prosecution involved as well. So that's another set of consequences. Yes, there is a possibility that the commission can bring about that. To a certain extent, people can get arrested. I don't think it will result in people being arrested en masse. For me, the greater consequence of the commission is the role it plays in revealing the truth to the ordinary people about how power is being exercised, about how the leaders that have been elected by those people make decisions. The ordinary people are out there, they are watching. And for me, they are the true people that are going to gain out of this, because they are going to start learning that, oh, is this the criteria in decision making used by the party or a member that are elected to office? When they go into the election, you are going to get a voter who is much more wiser, a voter who is much more rigorous, a voter who has been exposed to much more serious information than it can be said. Of course, if it so happens that people get arrested, that's a cherry on top, if it does happen. But that is not the only goal of a commission. The commission is to reveal the truth in its entirety. It's part of people understanding how some people colluded with politicians in wrongdoing. That information reaching the people, it will have political consequences. Maybe not next week, maybe not next year, but it is going to bear political consequences.
And lastly, if you were to advise our president as he is going to address us at the State of the Nation address, what would you tell him are the most pressing issues?
You know, the speech is always long. What is the average? About 2 hours or so sometimes. I will say, Mr. President, cut it short. You have said a lot, cut it short, and talk about a few things that are doable. You cannot do everything. And try not to say everything. Try to give a sense of confidence when it comes to program of action. And you know, don't give us a 2070 plan. It's not about smart cities and all other modern trinkets, if you like. It's about putting the lights on. It's about a tangible solution to say, we're going to try to do this. We've got this program on safety and security. We are expediting this and that. Anything that we have not mentioned, it doesn't mean we are not talking about it, but we want to focus on this. It should be a very conservative speech in my mind. The president should not overindulge, because priorities are quite a lot. It doesn't mean you've got to reflect on everything. You gotta have a sense of, after people listen to the president, they should get a sense of what's going to be happening and what is it that will not be happening. Yeah.
Thank you for your time, Ralph.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Ralph Mathekga in conversation with Polity about SA politics.